Oh, apparently, I just noticed this, these change, actually, over time. Ushirimio Kinzo disappeared from his study unnoticed. Kinzo's study has everything from a bed to a toilet to a bathtub, so it is extremely rare for him to go outside. However, he does occasionally go out for a walk on a whim without telling anybody, and his disappearance invariably leads to a huge uproar throughout the house. He usually comes back as soon as he gets hungry. Usually. Kraus. His corpse is found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. The direct cause of death is unknown, but it seems the side of his head was smashed after his death. It's the beginning of everything. Damn. His corpse was found inside the Rose Garden. His face seems to have been smashed after death. He has the right to lament his ill fortune. Her face been smashed. God, she was really fucking bloodied up right there. Like, I'm gonna assume this is how they found it, because he said, like, only half of his face was gone. And you could see, like, the gums of him. But good God, she got really fucked up. She was chosen by the demons Roulette. That's all there is to it. Oh God, she's pretty messed up as well. I'll get to see her again so I don't feel lonely. Don't worry, everyone will be revived in the Golden Land. Damn. How unfortunate. Apparently he was originally supposed to be on duty in the guest house. Fuck. Anything else change? No. But good God, that's fucking god-awful. Jesus. Wonder if these, like, bottom text parts, like, actually have any significance. Like, he has the right to lament his ill fortune. Like, could he not complain before, but now he can? Who is she who's feeling lonely? Or is it Rosa that feels lonely? Like, are they just kind of, like, talking about themselves right as they die? Who knows? I'm gonna go ahead and save that. And go back to the main story, because fuck me, I'm not sad enough.
そのあたりの切り替えの速さやドライなあたりは本当にルドルフ譲りね。
Thanks, Ava.
すぐにケロリと平静を取り戻したわ。
そんなことはないっすよ。俺だってまだまだ心のショックから立ち直れちゃいません。
People deal with shock differently.
ただ俺がみんなと違うのはそれによってどういう感情が生み出されるかってことだと思います。
どういうこと？
I've been acting much calmer than George and Jessica. That wasn't because my sadness was any less intense or because I had already recovered. My sadness was simply getting replaced gradually with the different emotion.
悲しいっていうよりは腹立たしいって気持ちなんすよ。どこのドイツがこんなことをしやがったのか。横っ面に一発お見舞いしてやらないことに腹の虫が収まらねえんです。
That was what I really wanted to do. I couldn't forgive myself if I just sat there, overwhelmed with sadness and hugging my knees.
親父たちが殺されて以降、この島は台風に包まれたままです。つまり、これだけの上等を決めてくれやがった野郎は、
Yep.
まだ。
そういうことになるわね。今も暗い森のどこかに身を潜めているのかしら。
That's probably where, unless it's you. I felt like I'd had a very similar conversation with Kyrie the night before. That's right. After the letter from the person claiming to be Beatrice appeared at the dining table last night, we talked about whether or not a 19th person actually existed.
エヴァおばさん、この殺人。昨夜のベアトリーチェの手紙と何か関連があるんでしょうかね。
Of course it does.
ああ、例の？さあ、どうかしらね。あの手紙はお父様が遺産問題に絡みたくて出した怪文書という見方で兄弟は一致したんだけれども。
i.e. a way to simplify it is literally kill anyone that could inherit it. because that seems like what she'd do.
それと今朝の事件に関係があるかは今の段階では分かりかねるわね。
あの手紙、本当にベアトリーチェなんて魔女がマリアに渡したんすかね。
No.
まさか全部お父様の仕組んだ茶番でしょ。シャノンちゃんあたりに肖像画のドレスを着させてマリアちゃんを騙したんでしょ。
I just don't believe Shannon could do it. Or, well, I don't know if there are any other people here, like servant-wise. I just don't think anyone would do it.
お父様らしい手の込みすぎたいたずらだと思うけど。
It doesn't make sense, and it doesn't seem like his type and his character.
ゆうべキリエさんとベアトリーチェは実在するんだろうかって話をしたんですけど、キリエさんも俺たち18人の中にベアトリーチェがいるだろうと言ってましたね。
そんなの当然じゃない。この島には私たちしかいないのよ。
But why kill Shannon and Goda, though? That's my question. Because if it has to do with the inheritance, there's no reason to kill the servants. Unless they just happen to walk in on, you know, a murder taking place. Wrong place, wrong time.
なら私たちの中の誰かがベアトリーチェを語ったに決まってるじゃない。
すか。
当然でしょ。私たち以外の誰がここにいるっていうの。この島には私たちしかいない。18人しかいない。
You say that like you know for a fact, but there is no fact that you know that. This person could have been on this island for years now.
ならベアトリーチェを語るのも18人の中の誰かしかいないじゃない。
And could have just been like biding their time and waiting. Like there's not saying that they had to have showed up like this year. They could have showed up last year, the year before. I mean, there's no telling. Kyrie denied the existence of a 19th person by spinning the chessboard around. Even though Aunt Ava hadn't constructed an argument that complicated, her opinion at least was the same. Except if that's the case, our situation starts to look very ugly. At the time of Beatrice's letter, the whole thing could be passed off as a prank set up by someone or another. However, if you're assuming there's no 19th person, we can't ignore this anymore. In other words,
19人目がいないなら
yeah, one of you guys killed everyone else. And there's no reason for the kids to do it because they were all together and, you know, they'll claim, oh, they were asleep, so how'd you know? I guarantee none of the kids did it because they wouldn't have acted in the same shock that they would. Ava's the only one that seems to have, like, really been composed by it. And Natsui, but I think Natsui kind of just didn't fucking, like, after, like, her husband kind of, like, said, yeah, fuck off, that kind of just got rid of all emotions there.
親父たちを殺した犯人も18人の中にいるってことになっちまうじゃないですか。
But it has to be Ava. I mean, it's just going to have to be. Because I doubt it's Genji, I doubt it's canon. It could be canon, though. It could be. I just don't see it happening. He wouldn't kill Shannon. Unless there's two people. That he found Shannon dead because one of the other 6, 7, whatever number, killed Shannon, and he found, like, you know, her dead, and then the dude with, like, blood on him. He would go into a rage and kill everyone there. I could see that happening. So, there's definitely that possibility. Why a magic circle thingy? I don't know. Probably to fuck with people, throw them off the trail. Kind of, like, disturb, like, screw with them. So, it could have been, like, say, Goda killed Shannon. Don't know why. He could have been just pissed off at her because she was, like, taking credit for something. Kanan saw that Goda killed him. He kills Goda. And then ends up killing the other people because they see it or something since it's in the dining hall or whatever. Or he just freaks out. I don't know. So, it could be like that kind of thing.
つまり今この屋敷にいる誰かが殺したってことになる。
But Ava smiled meaningfully. It looked like she thought this conclusion should have been obvious from the very beginning.
犯人は倉庫の中に6人の遺体を運び込んだわ。でもよく倉庫の中に運び込めたわよね。あのシャッターは常に閉められていて施錠されていたそうよ。つまり倉庫内に運び込むにはシャッターの施錠を開ける必要があった。わかる？
たまたまその日シャッターが開けっぱなしになってた可能性は。
I doubt it.
使用人たちは常に閉めていると言ってたの。つまり鍵を使用人室から持ち出さなくては倉庫は絶対に開けられない。
鍵は使用人室の一つしかないんすかね。
They said it was, but that could be wrong. There could be like a master key.
源氏さんはそうだと言ってるわ。ということは犯人はそのたった一つの倉庫の鍵のありかを知っていて持ち出した。さっきカノン君が使用人室に鍵を戻すところを見たわ。壁にびっしりと鍵がかけられていて、とても素人にはどこに何がかけてあるのかわからなかった。犯人はその中から倉庫の鍵を見事選び出したの。
I'd imagine they'd have some kind of labeling system.
しかも札も何もついていない鍵を手にして
Never mind.
バラ庭園裏にある倉庫の鍵だと理解した。ついでに言うと倉庫の場所すら理解していた。もっとはっきり断言するわ。犯人は使用人室の内部にも熟知している。
Her argument was extremely plain and clear. If the bodies had been found thrown out somewhere in the bushes of the rose garden, there wouldn't have been much to go on. However, there's only one key to the storehouse in the servant room, and it was stored with such a large group of keys, a novice would not be able to tell them apart. That means the culprit was someone who went into the servant room a lot and was familiar with the location of the keys. She's probably going to blame Natsui or the servants, which is fair. Not the Natsui part, but the servant part, yeah, that's fair. The family's members didn't normally go into the servant, which meant that...
ってことは使用人も犯人。
has to be.
悪いけどそれ以上はおばさんも言えないわよ。
I'm thinking it's canon, actually. He saw Shannon get murdered, went into a rage, and killed them.
でも一つだけ教えられることがある。
なんすか。
犯人たちは複数で、そして十分な武装をしていたと考えられる。だってそうでしょ。食堂にいた兄さんたち4人を一度に襲って殺し、合計6人分の遺体をよ々バラ庭園の向こうの倉庫まで運んで、悪趣味な化粧と落書きを施している。
Well, I'd imagine Genji would have helped them. In that sense.
これだけのことを単独犯で行えるはずもないでしょう。
It made sense. It probably would have been possible for a single person with enough time, but it would take so incredibly long. It was probably safe to assume that a significant number of people were involved.
ふう。ってことはエヴァおばさんは。
静かになさいな。憶測で言っちゃ悪いわよ。それにもし本当にそうだったらどうするつもり？
But what she could be doing is trying to get suspicion aroused, so it throws it off her.
彼らは私たちを生かして返さないでしょうね。しかも兄さんたち4人をやすやすと殺した相手なのよ。今この部屋に残っていてまともに戦えそうな人間はうちの家族の3人にせいぜいバトラ君で4人で。状況は昨晩と何も変わらない。つまり犯人にとっての 残る私たちを皆殺しにするなんて簡単なことなのよ。
And why don't they? If it would be easy for them, then why don't they? That's actually how I'd answer it. I'd been playing detective with Oneva, trying to expose the person who had killed Dad and the rest of the police before the police and the rest before the police did. If only I could clearly penetrate the culprit's identity and stick the proof in their face. I'd be sure that, just like in one of those detective movies, the culprit would then give up and surrender. However, the culprit would only surrender if there is no way for them to fight back. The culprits behind the crime on this island were far from helpless. It might even be able to massacre all of the remaining people here. And on top of that, this island was like a giant closed room, cut off from the outside world by a typhoon. So they had a full day, until tomorrow, to kill, scheme, and camouflage themselves. In short, it wasn't a safe atmosphere where we could get very far by playing detective. To the contrary, we were at a stage where we had to be scared stiff, since playing detective might displease the culprits, and cause them to commit another murder. Mass murder.
あくまでも可能性の問題よ。でも私は使用人の人たちをまだ信用できない。それに私は使用人だけを疑ってるわけじゃないの。さらに黒幕がいるかもしれないと思ってるわよ。
Yeah, you probably believe Natsui's behind it because you fucking hate her guts. I'm not willing to go to that far limits yet. I don't necessarily trust her, like completely, but I don't believe she's behind anything.
黒幕？どうしてですか？
買うよ。使用人は書いて字のごとし、誰かに使用されて手足となる存在。殺されたのは後ろの家家の親族ばかり。ならその結果で利害が発生する人間が関わるのは当然。
Yeah, and I would say, yeah, and you're looking mighty suspicious because now you're the head. After that one mass murder incident, no one else has to die at this point because you're the head now. Now if Kenzo dies, oh look, you get everything. This was also plain and clear. The Ushiromiya family had been right in the middle of discussing about how to distribute the inheritance when grandfather died. If this case followed the standard form of any classic mystery novel, the crime was definitely caused by someone with ties to the Ushiromiya family and who was involved in the inheritance problem. Oneva had probably read a few books in that genre herself. Her argument may have had a few blind assumptions in it, but it was a standard conclusion that anyone might have reached. I think most people would end up suspecting the servants, even if they used different reasoning to get there. Especially the story about the key to the shutter. That made it very easy to suspect that one of the servants was involved.
なぜか気に入らねえんすよね。
気に入らないって何の話？
あ、いえいえ、こっちの話っす。
It's too cliche in that sense. Too obvious. As I think what he was about to go on. I tried to dodge her question by joking, but I couldn't erase the sense of unease welling up inside me. After all, the conclusion was such an easy one to reach. A conclusion that anyone could reach. And I just couldn't be satisfied with that. If I tried spinning the chessboard around like I'd learned from Kyrie, this was exactly why a servant couldn't possibly be the culprit. If the servants really were the culprits, they wouldn't hide the bodies in a place connected to themselves. Why on earth would they use the Rose Garden shed if they were the ones in charge of the key that could unlock it? Exactly. It completely incriminates them. So I'd imagine that's why someone did it to frame them, and that's why I'm thinking it's Ava. Or they, fucking panicked and could have done it that way. I still think it's Ava that's involved in this somehow, because she's trying to shift blame here. The police would probably immediately pursue whoever had been in control of the key. It was even possible that some other facts might come to light as a result. And the more we think the servants as the culprits, the less reason they had to carry the bodies into the storehouse. But what if they knew what we'd think that, and put the corpses in the storehouse for that very reason? Then you're starting to get into like 3D and 4D level chess right here. Knowing they'll suspect me, doing this knowing that they'll suspect that I did it in an attempt to fake it. It's like, oh my god, whoa. Then it's a frame job. It's like, wow, stop. Like, that's really getting into like next level thinking strategy right there. No, that's completely impossible. Because then it starts looping. When the police come in and inspect the scene of the crime, they'll probably be able to uncover many things. No matter how carefully the culprits carried out that murder, some traces will definitely be found. In other words, they had everything to lose and nothing to gain. If you think about it this way and look at this murderer game from the culprit's side, it's hard to imagine why they'd want to call attention to the corpses. All I could imagine is they're trying to screw with people. Trying to get people to get paranoid and start distrusting others. So that they don't actually have to kill anyone again, that they'll just end up offing everyone else. Once the corpses were found, it would result in someone sending a report to the police, or it might make the remaining people more cautious, or it might make the survivors start to search for the culprit. None of these things would make life any easier for the culprit. It's just like the words of the main character's mother in a novel I recently read called Higurashi no Naku Koro ni. Ah, never heard of that. Every story needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Yeah, you can't have a mystery novel that has no crime. Or at least the crime that doesn't begin. Because if they never find the body, the story never starts. The crime never begins. In that sense. Eliminating the beginning is essential for the perfect crime. Right now, we don't know where Grandfather is. We don't know if he's already become a victim or if he's one of the culprits. But this state of confusion must be beneficial to the killer. That weird fucking diagram as well. The culprit has absolutely nothing to gain by showing us the bodies in such an obvious way, making us all realize that there's been a murder. In fact, this is the perfect place to spin the chessboard around. In other words, showing us the corpses in such a flashy way must be the culprit's goal in of itself. I guarantee you it's in a sense to show, like, hey, these rule things are real. And get ready, because you're about to get paranoid as shit, because you're going to assume someone's going to be trying to kill you. And you're going to distrust everyone. I guarantee you that's the role they're trying to take. So they don't have to worry about actually having to kill everyone off, because they'll just kill each other off. So at the very least, the appearance of 6 corpses there meant more than the deaths themselves. In other words, the culprit wanted this murder on display. To whom? To anyone that would see it. To us. This is a message. The culprit's trying to shove something in our face. I don't know what it is. At this point in time, this vulgar mass murder isn't making me feel anything except a malice directed towards all of us. Malice towards all of us, is it? Well, if you look at who was killed... Yeah, I was about to say. Each one of the survivors has some kind of connection to one of the 6 victims. Yeah. That's what I was actually just about to say. Is that everyone had something to lose, theoretically speaking. Ava, not necessarily as much as everyone else, because she clearly doesn't care about her siblings. But everyone else does have some sort of tie to it. You know, Battler, his parents. Ava's her siblings. Ava's husband, you know, it's its aunt and uncle and all that stuff. Well, not aunt and uncle, but, like, you know, brother-in-law, sister-in-laws. And, like, that kind of shit. George lost his fiancée. Jessica lost her father. Natsui lost her husband, and then Maria lost her mother. Then servants lost, their friends, blah blah blah. Canon lost a sister figure. So all of them do have like some kind of reason, theoretically, that it could be like, hey, anyone could have done this. Anyone could have been like for these murder reasons. And it like shows like this is done to say fuck you to each and individual person that's still alive. Uncle Cross's death brought Jessica the grief of losing a family member. The deaths of Dad and Kyrie brought me sorrow, while Rose's death brought Maria sorrow, hopefully. Goda's death probably shocked his fellow servants, and Shannon's death brought grief both to George, who had proposed to her, and Canon, who had loved her like an older sister. Everyone now on this island has received an equal amount of sadness. Aunt Ava was sure that the servants were in cahoots. But then, how could you explain the deaths of Goda and Shannon? At any rate, by this argument, the grief caused by the six hit everyone but Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi. Exactly. Even Aunt Ava, who had directed suspicion at the servants, acted as though she herself was beyond suspicion. Yeah, because she said, oh, I can trust you guys. Fuck? How do I know I can trust you? Could not be ruled out as a suspect. In the first place, she was able to argue that the servants were suspicious by focusing on the shutter's key. But if you look at it from the perspective of the motive who would gain, Aunt Ava's name rises to the top of the list. Exactly. She is number one. Like, without, if it was, say, not hidden at all, she is target suspect number one. By shifting the location, she goes down on this list by a lot. That's why I was suspecting her in the first place, because she gains the most out of this. Because she is now in direct line to the head in inheritance. And she seems like the type that would kill for money.
バトラ君が何を考えてるかおばさんわかるわよ。
I doubt it.
What? いや、内緒にしててくださいよ。あんなことやこんなことで頭をいっぱいにしてたなんて。
Good God, stop it.
私がこの殺人で一番得をする。
Yeah, you are.
どうせ疑われるだろうから先に自己申告しておくわ。
I tried to dodge the issue by joking around, but apparently it didn't work.
遺産は兄弟の数で分割する。でも今や4兄弟は私一人。後ろ宮家の全財産は全て私のものになるの。
秀吉おじさんが聞いたら予算か言えばシャレにならんっていうところっすね。
ごめんね。どう取り繕ったってどうせ疑われるだろうからふざけただけよ。だからこの殺人は私の立場から見れば私を疑わせるためのものではないかと思ってるの。困ったことに昨べのアリバイは弱いわ。
Yeah, especially if Hideyoshi's in on it. Then you have no alibi.
聞かせてもらってもいいっすか。昨べのことを。
バトラ君たちも知っている通り兄弟が遺産をどう食いちぎり合うかという話し合いは深夜まで続いたわ。でも何時まで続いたかは知らない。私と主人は朝が早かったからね。もう眠くて24時を過ぎたあたりで抜けさせてもらったの。
See, that whole thing sounds so fishy because she doesn't seem like the type that would be like, oh, I'm okay with them discussing it without me here. It's so fishy.
そしてゲストハウスに戻って休んだわ。
That sounds actually more fucking, that sounds like a complete lie, actually. I don't even think they did. I would have to ask one of the servants if they ended up coming over there. Because I don't think they did, because Shannon talked about how she was locking the door and all that. And gonna make sure that, like, everything was locked up. And that was while they were still having a discussion. I don't know if she had left by that point. But I'd imagine she never did leave. Or at least in the sense that she never left the mansion until to kill them.
それを秀吉おじさん以外の誰かに証明できるっすか？
Of course not.
いやいや、別にエヴァおばさんを疑ってるわけじゃないっすよ。
あら、どうだか。証明になるかわからないけれど、ゲストハウスに戻ってきた時、源氏さんに出迎えを受けてタオルはいるかと聞かれたわ。
Yeah, I need to talk to Genji and see if that's true. If so, then it's slightly more believable.
だから私たちがゲストハウスに戻ってきた時間は24時過ぎだと証明してくれると思うわよ。
I'll need to go talk to fucking Genji.
もっとも私の仮説通り使用人たちもグルなのだとしたらこんなのアリバイにならないけどね。
That's also a good point, but I'd still like to talk to Genji just to see if the premise is the same.